Hey there! Is today your first time here? Or maybe your first time in a while? If so, maybe you're wondering exactly who we are and what this church is all about. Well, we'd like you to know that we're a group of ordinary people who are on an amazing journey together, following Christ. Our guide is the Bible because it's the divinely inspired Word of God, and it will never take us in the wrong direction. Along the way, we hope you'll see that we are welcoming and spiritually passionate, and that getting to know you is a big deal to us. We know that the road is rough sometimes, but we'll work really hard to bring you practical and relevant messages to equip and encourage you through life's ups and downs. We want you to know that we care about this community, and we believe that it's our job to make it a better place. So no matter who you are or where you've been, we're glad you're here with us today, and we hope that you'll join us on our journey, following Christ and living out His plan for us. So welcome to church.
Hey folks, I'm humbled and blessed that you're watching our study on the book of Revelation today. Have a little bit of bad news. We had some difficulty with technology, so obviously some technical problems. So we won't be able to show the video today. We'll have the audio of the book of Revelation chapter 9 today, but we won't be able to have the video today. We'll have it fixed up for you by next week. Love you guys. Please know that we're praying for you. And we know that the Lord's got you and taking you through all this. And you guys stay safe out there. God bless you. Well, good morning, everyone. It's a blessing to be here with you once again. Really miss your faces. Wish we were all here together. I believe it's coming soon. Please stay safe and healthy as we go through this, and use this time to draw close to your family and to the Lord. And I know God will get us through this. Listen, before we jump into the book of Revelation, I want to talk or mention, I should say, a few different things. Those of you who have read the book of Revelation or have at least heard some things about it, you know and understand that in the end, there is going to be a whole different world. In fact, there is going to be one individual that has one government that rules the world. Which will be real different than what it is now. And also, we're familiar with the fact that the Bible says that there will be markings on people, enabling them to keep you from purchasing or buying. It's referred to as the mark of the beast. This has been talked about for years. And there's little devices even now that they can, little cylinders they can put under your skin to track you. The military uses this. Some people put them in their dogs in case their dogs go out, run away. They can track them down. And there are even some cities that are doing what they call as testing, and whoever wants to come in, they're kind of testing how this is going to work. And again, it's a tracking system that the world will have so that they'll be able to know where everybody is and who everybody is, and they'll have all the information about you. And again, if you've walked with the Lord for a period of time or ever gone through the book of Revelation or talked about prophecy, this is a very common thing spoken of. And we've been looking for this in our society for years. I can remember when in the grocery stores or the stores when the scanning was first introduced, it was like, uh-oh, here it comes. And everybody was afraid for the scanning and everything. And that was probably an early stage of being able to keep track of things. In the situation that we're currently in with this coronavirus lockdown, there's a lot of fears and everything that are unfolding with people. And there's a lot of things happening within various governments, the United States government being included, with making some huge changes in how countries are run, how they keep track of people. Even here in America, there are some politicians that are saying this situation is a great opportunity for us to rework our government and how our government works. And so they're publicly making these speeches and saying that this is a great opportunity to get some of these things done and to rearrange things. And probably you've heard on the news that there is a large discussion of tracking people that have or don't have the coronavirus. And this is really taking off, and there are so many people that think this is a great idea. They're not looking at anything other than the protection of and the stopping of the spreading of this virus. China already is using an app on their telephones, on their cell phones, and the app registers you green, yellow, or red. I saw a reporter who was being interviewed who was there in China, and he said when he got off the plane, he had to go through this checking. He had to download this app onto his phone, and his came out green, and so green means you're okay. If it switches to yellow, that means that you've been around somebody who is infected. If it goes to red, that means you're infected by it. They can actually, he was saying, they can actually follow you, and they can see, like if you take the train someplace, they can see what car you are on in the train, and they can tell if you're around people who are yellow or green or red, and they can see when you switch to yellow. And if you switch to green, then there is the required quarantine that you must go through. And so this is the type of control that they already are implementing in some countries. We know for sure China, and people over here in the States are saying, that is a great idea. I think we should do this. The majority of the people who are going down this road have no concept of the book of Revelation. They have no concept that God has said in the end times that there will be a one world government, and this is a system that they will put into play. Most people who are behind and in agreement of this are just thinking of stopping and preventing the spread of this virus. And again, I am not suggesting that this is, in fact, the mark of the beast. I am just sharing with you guys that we're not in the process of developing this ability. It's here. It's here now. And we can see that this virus has opened the doors, and there are governments, there are American politicians that say this is the time to change our policies. This is the time to change how our government works and how we, in their opinion and in theirs, how we help people. Bottom line, folks, is they will absolutely remove all the freedom that we have, and they will have every single individual in their data system, and they will be able to follow us and know where we are. In fact, I heard that in China, if you shut off your phone, the police come to your house. You are not allowed to close off your phone, because if you close off your phone, they can't track you. So I know the phone isn't the answer, though every single one of us have phones in our pockets or in our hands, but you can shut them off. So eventually there's going to be a system that is put within people that can't be removed, or I should say shut off, other than by the government. So this is not, what they are talking about, this tracking is not the mark of the beast, but it definitely informs us it's here, folks. It's no longer like watching the scanning at the store as far as, oh my gosh, look how close they're getting. No, there's no closeness no more. It is here. And you'll see as we continue through the book of Revelation, we will get to the chapters that will describe to us the one world government and the markings and the trackings, and we're watching the fact that it's all real and happening right in front of us today. So it should be an eye-opener, a heart change in our lives. I pray that we just don't freak out and panic. I just pray that we will be aware of this book that we're going through, the book of Revelation, is very real and very true, and it is absolutely going to happen because we're watching it happen in front of us right now. Again, I know it's jumping ahead of our text today. Our text today is the book of Revelation, chapter 9, and what I was just talking about is later in the book of Revelation, but today our text is in chapter 9 of the book of Revelation. We read in chapter 8 about the four trumpets that were sounded, the four trumpets of judgment that came upon this world. They hit this world, they hit this earth hard. 1/3 of the vegetation was destroyed. 1/3 of the creatures in the sea were destroyed. 1/3 of the ships that were in the sea were destroyed. 1/3 of the fresh water was destroyed, which then affected and killed many people because those that did drink the water were poisoned. Others couldn't drink the water. 1/3 of the light was removed. 1/3 of the brightness of the sun. 1/3 of the brightness of the moon. 1/3 of the brightness of the stars. So we have seen that the first four trumpets or judgments of God upon this earth have been devastating to this earth. And then we close chapter 8 where an angel came by and said, "Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth." And this was a warning and he said that the coming, or the last three coming judgments or trumpets were going to be worse than the first four. The first four, as I shared with you, affected the earth, the vegetation, the oceans, the water, the lighting, but these next three trumpets or judgments affect people. They will have a devastating effect upon the people who are living and alive here on the earth at the time that this unfolds. Jesus warned of this devastation. Jesus said that in the last days, in the end times, the devastation would be almost unbearable. He shares in the Gospel of Mark chapter 13, beginning in verse 19, Jesus says, "For in those days there will be tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of creation, which God created until this time, nor ever shall be. And unless the Lord had shortened those days, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake," the elect being the 144,000 who are marked by the Lord, "but for the elect's sake, whom he chose, he shortened the days." So Jesus says, listen, in these end times, in this great tribulation, the devastation is going to be so severe if it were not for God limiting the time and shortening the time, that everybody, all living beings would have been destroyed. But God does limit it. As I've shared before, I believe that the church has been raptured by this time. I believe that the church is in heaven, and we will not be here during this time. And you can only imagine what it'll be like when the believers are suddenly removed from the earth by the rapture. And all the godly resistance and standards that now exist in the world will be removed. And this will allow evil to run throughout the world. And can you imagine how dark and evil things will be? There's no conviction. There's nobody saying, "Hey, you can't do that," or "Hey, that's wrong," or "Oh, hey, that's evil." It's gone. There's no godly standards or love or affect. It's gone. The people who have that through Christ, it's gone. We're even seeing our culture today pushing hard against the moral restraints of biblical standards. The culture today does not like biblical standards. Christians and our biblical beliefs and standards, they're hated by so many people in the world. We're considered to be narrow-minded and bigots and hate mongers. They don't like the way we think. They don't like our morals. They say our morals they believe are outdated and that times and people have now changed and we are the problem. The world has pushed hard to remove biblical standards, and they want people that do believe in the biblical standards and do accept and live by the biblical standards. They want those people removed. They believe that people who believe in the Bible and accept the biblical standards and morals, they believe that we are a hindrance to the advancement and the progress of society. We're slowing society down. We're slowing progress down. We need to get up with the times. What we believe was great back in 2,000 years ago, but they want the biblical standards and the people that accept those standards, they want us gone. And you can see this anger towards Christianity and towards biblical beliefs. And so we're seeing this beginning to happen now, but thank God we're here. And it is having an effect. But once we're removed, then everything will change. Unfortunately, once the church is removed by the rapture, evil and darkness will run free. And the world will be able to then see the depth of wickedness. And the world will then begin to see the the true and the real intentions of Satan and demons. God will permit Satan and demons to do what they truly desire to do, and that's to destroy. They want to destroy people, God's creation, God's opinions, God's morals. Demons and Satan, they hate that, and they want it all destroyed. And once the Christians are removed, then you'll see them running rampant. Jesus told us the truth, and he said that Satan came only to steal, to kill, and destroy. And when the church is removed and the rapture has unfolded, we'll see this darkness spread. And we're beginning to see this darkness spread now, but check out chapter 9 of Revelation, and you begin to see the horrifying depth of this evil darkness. So Revelation chapter 9, beginning in verse 1, it says, "Then the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and smoke arose out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. And so the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of the pit. Then out of the smoke locusts came up upon the earth. And to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. They were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth, or any green thing, or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. And they were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months. Their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man. In those days, men will seek death and will not find it. They will desire to die, and death will flee from them." Father, as we have the opportunity of opening your word together, it is our prayer and our desire, Lord, that you speak to our very hearts. Lord, open our eyes, open our hearts, open our lives to see you and to embrace and understand and accept your word, Father. Lord, it's humbling to know that you've written this word out for us to let us know. But Lord, may we accept it as your word, and may we embrace it and put it into our lives and follow it and allow it to be our direction and our purpose in life. So bless this time as we open your word together. And we ask this in Jesus' name, amen. So our text says, "A star fallen from heaven to the earth." Now we know that this star is not like the typical stars that we see every night up in the sky. Because we read here, to him was given the key to the bottomless pit, and he opened the bottomless pit. So this star is a person or a being. It's not a planet, or it's not a star as we see. It's an individual. To him was given the key. He opened the bottomless pit. I believe this fallen star to be Satan. I believe it to be Lucifer. We read in the book of Isaiah chapter 14, beginning in verse 12. It says, "How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. How you are cut down to the ground, you who weaken the nations. For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation on the furthest sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet you shall be brought down to Sheol, to the lowest depth of the pit." So I believe this fallen star that comes from heaven to the earth is referencing to Satan. And it says in our text that God gives Satan the key to the bottomless pit, which sometimes is called the abyss. You'll see we'll go through some scriptures where sometimes it's called the bottomless pit, sometimes it's called the abyss. But what is this bottomless pit? We read about it, but what is it? It seems to be a prison for fallen angels. For those who are kept in it, they seem to be like the worst angels ever. We read in the book of Jude, chapter 1, verse 6, it says, "And the angels who did not keep their proper domain, but left their own abode, he has," referring to God, "and God has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for judgment of the great day." So demons are fallen angels. They didn't want to follow God and God's ways. They didn't want to surrender to God and do what God had created them to do, and they rebelled. So God cast them out. 2 Peter 2:4 says, "For God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment." Demons are fallen angels. But obviously, some are more wicked and dangerous than others. These are the ones that are locked up are the really bad ones. They would be, I guess, what we would consider the worst of the worst. But there are some demons who are not locked up in the bottomless pit. And the Bible says that they actually roam the earth looking for people to possess. Yeah, demon possession is real. There was a man possessed of many demons who lived, he was so messed up, he lived in the tombs, he lived in the graveyards. And when Jesus approached him, we read in Luke chapter 8, beginning in verse 30, is Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," because many demons had entered him. And these demons, they begged Jesus that he would not command them to go out into the abyss or the bottomless pit. Please don't send us to the bottomless pit. Please do not send us to the abyss. They knew Jesus had authority over them, and they didn't want to be hindered from roaming around or possessing people. So some demons are roaming this earth, looking for people to possess. The really, really wicked ones are locked up in the abyss. In fact, we'll read as we go further through the book of Revelation, when Jesus returns, he himself will throw Satan into this bottomless pit, into the abyss, and will lock him up for 1,000 years while Jesus reigns here on earth. But currently, Satan is not in the abyss. He is not in the bottomless pit. And there are some demons that are also not in the bottomless pit. But the really, really bad, evil, destructive ones are. And during the judgment of God, God allows this pit to be opened and these demons to be released. So the bottomless pit is opened, and so much smoke, it says, rises up out of it that the sun and the air is even blocked. You can't even see it. But smoke isn't the only thing that comes out of the pit. John says locusts also come out of the pit. So keep in mind, we've already determined and established that in the bottomless pit are demons. So when it's open, besides the smoke coming out, demons are what comes out. Since demons are kept in the bottomless pit, I believe these locusts are actually demons. John had never seen anything like this. He had never, ever seen anything like this before. So to him, their appearance seemed to look something like a locust. So to write down what he saw, his best description was they were locusts. Now, in just a few verses, we're going to read the description of them, and you'll see that they don't look like normal locusts. But that's how he's described them. To call them and to describe them, he said they look like locusts. These demons were told not to harm the grass or any part of the vegetation of the earth. They were only to harm people who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. Now, the interesting thing, normal locusts totally destroy vegetation. They are like the worst swarms of insects to attack your fields because they don't just eat the leaves. They don't just eat what they can see. They get all the way down and devour the roots. So once they've passed through the land, it's desert. There's nothing that can re-spring up. But their normality is to go after the vegetation. But not these locusts. Only the people who did not have the seal of God were the ones that were being attacked. They were told to harm those without God's seal on them. And this again would be the 144,000 that were sealed by God that we read about back in chapter 7. I also find it fascinating that these demons were not given authority to kill any of the people. They were only given the authority to torment them. Not that torment's good, but they didn't have the authority and the ability to kill any of these people. They were only permitted to torment them for 5 months. And the torment was so severe, you guys, that the people wanted to kill themselves. They saw no way out. They saw no relief. They saw no help in any direction, so they just wanted to die. But death, it says, will flee from them. They will not be able to die. I don't know to what extreme this goes. I don't know if somebody shoots themselves if they won't die, but it says that death will flee from them. People during this time, this 5 months of torment, they will not be able to die. As we go on in Revelation chapter 9, beginning in verse 7, John gives us a description of these demons that he has called locusts. Look at verse 7 of Revelation 9. It says, the shape of the locust was like horses prepared for battle, and on their heads were crowns of something like gold, and their faces were like faces of men. They had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth, and they had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots with many horses running into battle. They had tails like scorpions, and there were stingings And there were stings in their tails. Their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew is Abaddon, but in the Greek his name is Apollyon, one woe has passed. Behold, still 2 more woes are coming after these things. So you can see that this description that John has laid out, though he's called them locusts, his description of them is nothing like a normal locust. I know you guys have seen either pictures or actually seen locusts, and reading this is like, man, the locusts that I've seen, they don't quite look like this. They were like horses prepared for battle, meaning they had armor to protect their bodies. They had crowns of something like gold. It wasn't golden crowns, but on their head, something like gold was there. They had faces like men. They had hair like women, meaning it was long, and they had teeth like lions. So that they had breastplates like iron, and the sound of their wings as they fly sounded like chariots being drawn by horses, tons of chariots and horses. So it's the rumbling, it's the roar, it's the loudness. They had tails like scorpions that would sting the people. But again, not to kill them, just to torment them for 5 months. So you got to admit that though John has described them as locusts, it's not your typical locust that he's seeing here. It's not the typical locust that he's describing here. Some believe this could be a description of modern-day weapons like a modern-day helicopter, military helicopter. And I guess that's possible if you can picture a modern-day helicopter, or once we're through here, go online and look up a modern-day helicopter, and you can get that image, the tail of the helicopter coming up and the cockpit and everything, okay, I can sort of see that. So I guess that's possible, but the main problem that I have with that is the modern-day helicopters that are used in war, they're not used to torment people. They're used to kill people. And so these particular demons that I believe they're not allowed to kill anybody. And we use helicopters in wars, and they absolutely kill people. And there is no way of arranging or fixing these helicopters today to just torment people. They're meant to kill. So I guess it's possible that it's modern day weaponry, and I guess it's possible that it's a helicopter. But again, I believe these are demons, and you can see how horrifying they look, and you can see the crazy power that they have. But their power and their authority is limited by God. We don't have the ability to limit our war weapons of war and things like that. We always say that, unfortunately, civilians are always the casualty of war. Why? Because we don't have the ability to limit what our weapons do. Our weapons are meant to destroy and to kill. Whereas we see these. So I believe these are demons. I believe John has done his best to describe what he's seeing. To him, they kind of have this image of a locust, but as he describes it, it's like, yes, it's a real different kind of locust. And their ability is limited by God. And the army of these demons, they have a leader. Abaddon or Apollyon, and both in both languages, it simply means destroyer. And that has always been the desire and the intentions and the purpose of Satan, is to destroy. From the very beginning, he wants to destroy mankind. He wants to destroy all of the creations of God. He wants to destroy the planet. He wants to destroy everything we have. He wants to destroy. He hates God and everything that God has created. And so he is a destroyer. And so here we see this leader of these demons is labeled, his name is Destroyer. And he's gone out to destroy and to torment. So the first woe, which was the fifth trumpet, was the releasing of the most evil demons from the bottomless pit to torment people for 5 months. That's a lot worse than what we've read in chapter 8. It's a lot worse than the vegetation or the fish or the fresh water or the light. These are people that are being tormented for 5 months. We now have the sounding of the sixth trumpet. Look at Revelation 9, beginning in verse 13. Then the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, "Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great rivers Euphrates." So the 4 angels who had been prepared for the hour and the day and month and year were released to kill 1/3 of mankind. Now the number of the army of the horsemen was 200 million. I heard the number of them, and thus I saw the horses in the vision. Those who sat on them had breastplates of fiery red, hyacinth blue, sulfur yellow, and the heads of the horses were like the heads of lions, and out of their mouth came fire, smoke, and brimstone. By these 3 plagues, 1/3 of mankind were killed by the fire and the smoke and the brimstone which came out of their mouth. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails, for their tails are like serpents, having heads, and with them they do harm. So it says here that the voice came from the golden altar, came from the golden altar, which we mentioned earlier in chapter 8, and that is the golden altar is where the prayers of the saints were offered to God. As mentioned again in chapter 8, perhaps these are the prayers of the martyrs those that had been martyred for Christ, the martyred saints, and perhaps this is the answering of God. Their cry to God was, when will we be avenged? And perhaps we see this as, remember God said, well, wait, there's more to be martyred, and once they're all been martyred, and once everyone is in heaven, then I will avenge. And so this coming from the altar seems to suggest that this is the answering of the prayers of those who have been martyred once the church has been raptured. And since it says here that these 4 angels that were released, they were bound, that lets us know that these are not good angels. There's no heavens bound in heaven. The angels in heaven serve the Lord and are before the Lord, but these particular angels that are released, it says that they were bound. So again, these are not good angels, these are fallen angels. These would be demons, as we would refer to them. It says that this all unfolds around the Euphrates River, which basically ran through the city of Babylon. There in Babylon, there have been a lot of false religions that have come, and false beliefs and hatred that have come out of the area, the around and in Babylon. A lot of demon activity there. Old Babylon was located in the current location of Iraq, and we've seen the horrible and evil brutality that has come in that area. When ISIS went in to Iraq and they were in this area, the horrible evil that came from them it's hard for me to even imagine the thing that they were doing to Christians and doing to people. And it's just, you look at this evil and it's just like, this isn't about some ticked off guy. This is somebody who's got a real evil problem. And so it's real probable, as it says, that these come from the area of the Euphrates River, that there seems to be a lot of evil and demonic things that happen in this area. It says that these 4 angels were bound until this specific time, and they were given authority. These particular angels were given the authority to kill 1/3 of mankind. We've already read in earlier chapters that 1/4 of mankind has been killed, and so now we have 1/3. So we're talking like half of the world's population at this point will have been killed. The description of the attacking army is horrifying. It's just horrifying to read that from their mouths fire and smoke and brimstone, and that's what's doing the killing. And the horses had heads like lions, and the breastplates were fiery red and brilliant blue and sulfur yellow, and it's an army that we've never seen. And these kill 1/3, the tails like serpents. So some again believe that this is an army of demons. I'm one of those that believe that this is, an army of demons because of the description, and the bottomless pit has been released, and the evil angels, the fallen angels, have been set free and no longer bound. And so it gives us this direction that demons are absolutely involved here. Others believe it is an actual army with modern weapons, an army that is capable of 200 million in their army. And a number of years ago, China has boasted that they have the abilities of having an army of 200 million strong. And we're currently watching China do all that they can. China's whole goal and purpose and direction is to control the world. Not just financially, but by military and everything else. They want to control the world. And they can, and they do have an army of 200 million strong. Biggest army in the world. So, is it demons? Is it China? As we know by scriptures, demons possess people. So perhaps both theories are right. Perhaps this great army are men possessed with demons. And John from heaven sees the demons that have possessed this army. And so it's very probable and possible that it's both. It's an army of men who are possessed by demons. We're not certain, really. It's real probable that it's men that are possessed. So we're not real positive, we're not sure, but one thing is sure, 1/3 of mankind will be killed by this army. Well, the crazy thing with all of this destruction and death, the rest of mankind, the 2/3 that are not killed, they refuse to repent. They refuse to turn to God. Remember, we've already read that at this point of all of these horrible things, they're realizing this isn't just coincidence or happening. This is God. This is God that is allowing this to happen. It's come to their realization. This is the judgment of God. This is the wrath of God. So they seem to have put together that this is not a normal situation, but the wrath of God has been poured out, and they're watching all of this suffering and torment and death, and they still refuse to repent. Look at verse 20 in chapter 9 of Revelation. But the rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues did not repent of the works of their hands, that they should not worship. They chose not to worship, stop worshiping demons and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and wood, which can neither see nor hear nor walk. And they did not repent of their murders or their sorceries or their sexual immoralities or their thefts. They didn't want to change anything about that, their lives. They didn't want to stop worshiping demons. They didn't want to stop worshiping idols. They didn't want to stop murdering and getting into sorcery and their sexual immorality and their stealing from one another. They don't want to change. This is God's wrath. Thousands are dying. Thousands are tormented. I don't want to change. I don't want to do anything different. They were refusing to repent. After these two woes, no turning to God. 5 months of horrible torment, 1/3 of the population killed, and yet they refuse to repent. In fact, they're going to hold on to their own idols. They're going to hold on to worshiping demons. They're going to hold on to their murderous, evil, dark ways. After seeing the wickedness of Satan, they still refuse to repent and change their ways and turn to God. I believe that since they were surrounded by nothing but evil, remember, the Christians have been raptured, and those that were martyred, who had accepted the Lord, had been martyred, and they were now in heaven. I believe that they are surrounded by nothing but evil, and therefore their minds and their hearts were consumed and unoccupied and surrounded by nothing but evil. There were no children of God here on earth. It was just evil and dark and ugly. So the inhabitants of the earth were the only ones that were here. Have you ever noticed that how when people start hanging around with a particular group, that the longer they are a part of that group, the more like the group they become? It doesn't matter what kind of group it is. You can go rowdy and say if you start hanging around with gangsters, then you start looking and acting and thinking like a gangster. If you start hanging around with the popular kids, then you start looking and acting like all the popular kids. If you start hanging around with people who are extremely ambitious and motivated, then you become ambitious and motivated. And it doesn't matter, but whatever you're surrounded with, it affects you. Even in dangerous situations. When you see people who have plugged themselves into, I've seen and heard of so many young people who the parents will say, well, they were straight A students, and then they started hanging around with this group, and now they dye their hair, they're pierced all over the place, they're tattooed everywhere, they cuss, they're rowdy, they drink, they do drugs, and I don't know who they are anymore. But they are just like who they're hanging out with. And when you try to explain to them, do you not see the damage? Do you not see the change? They don't see it. They don't see it. And it's like, how do you not see the difference? How do you not see this effect on your life? And again, it doesn't matter. I'm not just talking evil. Also, those who are obsessed with work, and if they hang around with people who are obsessed with work, then they just don't go home no more. They're just obsessed with work, and it doesn't matter if the husband or the wife says, listen, we missed you, you're never home. They don't see it. I'm making money, I'm providing for everybody, but we're falling apart without you. You're never here. We miss you. It's like, I've got to provide for all of this, and they don't see it. You can tell them, you can warn them, you can point it out, and they don't see it. Why? Because they're consumed in what they're doing. All they see is what they're doing. And I believe that unfortunately at this time in the world, there's no godliness. There's no looking for God or listening for God or wanting God. There's anger towards God. They're angry at God, and you'll see as we continue through that there's times where they shake their fist at God and they curse God. So they know God's involved here, but they're just consumed and surrounded by nothing but evil. And so they don't see. They don't hear. They're not aware. That's why it's dangerous to be in the midst of certain groups. You lose your identity. You lose who you really are. You lose who you think you are or who you were, and you become whatever they're told to be. And again, I'm not just talking evil. I'm talking in anything. You know, it's a horrifying thing to see how, even with good intentions, people are changed, and they don't see it. And so these individuals here, they don't see that they need to turn to God. They're surrounded and consumed by nothing but evil and darkness and ugliness. And so though they acknowledge God is a part of this and they're angry at him, they don't want anything to do with him. They're watching people torment around them or themselves being tormented. They're watching people die around them, but it's not affecting them. I'm not going to change. I'm going to be who I am, do what I want, plan my own life, say what I want, act how I want. I'm going to be me, no matter what anybody says. And they just keep forging forward. And folks, I wish I could tell you this was the peak and it's going to start getting better from here, but it's not. As we continue through the book of Revelation, it's going to continue to get worse. And so here's my heart as we're going through the book of Revelation. As I shared with you guys last week, God has described the end and how it's going to be in the end before Jesus comes. So he's described the end before it happens, before we actually get there. And he's done that so that we'll hopefully see God is in control. God has warned us and said, look, this is what it's going to be like in the end times. This is what the final world government, power, judgments, this is what it's going to look like before Jesus comes back, in hopes that we see these things unfolding and we turn to him, acknowledging, well, he told us about it beforehand so that we would accept that it's him. He knows what he's doing because he told us about it before it happened. All that we see happening in our world today, we're not in the book of Revelation yet. The seals have not begun to be opened. The trumpets have not begun to be blown yet. But I believe it's God showing the world, it's showing us that the book of Revelation is possible. In fact, it's unfolding right in front of our eyes, right here and right now. It's real. It's not a fairy tale. It's real. And we're watching the whole world begin to change, you guys. And if you don't see the changing of the world, then you need to open your eyes. You don't want to be like the people that we just read about, that though they are aware of all that's happening, they're just closed to anything, any thoughts, any opinions, any ideas, I'm going to cling to my thoughts, and I'm going to cling to my opinion, and I'm going to cling to what the people around me believe and think and feel, and I'm not going to consider anything else. And God is trying to warn the world that he is absolutely coming back. God is trying to warn the world that this world is going to get so evil that once God removes his church, and once the evil that remains here eliminates and kills all those who accept Jesus, and it's just left with the evil, God has said, this is what it's going to look like. And this is God's wrath coming. And he said, I'm warning you because it's real. And he's given us this ability to get a glimpse of how bad it can be and how bad it's going to be. Look at what this virus has done to the world. not just in physical and death, but in economy and everything else. Look at how it has flipped up to where, nobody knows who to believe anymore. Nobody knows who to trust anymore. It's thrown the world into chaos. And we haven't even got to the ugliness and the brutality and the darkness of the book of Revelation yet. This is just a glimpse of, is it possible? Well, yeah. How do you know it's possible? We're watching the world change right in front of us. So this is a time, I pray, that everyone is open to the truth. I beg you to please at least personally and seriously consider what the Bible is saying. I believe when you start seriously considering the truth of the Bible, then you will absolutely see the truth of the Bible, and you will believe in Jesus and accept him into your life. If you refuse to even consider it, then it's never going to come into your mind, come into your heart, and come into your life. If you decided, I don't want to hear anything other than what I believe and what I feel and what I want, then you'll never see the truth. You'll never hear the truth. And therefore, you'll never accept the truth because you're convinced that you're right, that you know better. So I just pray with all of my heart, you guys, that whoever you are, at least take the step of considering. You know what? I don't believe the Bible. I don't believe all this stuff in the book of Revelation. But I'll tell you what. I'll consider it and I'll seriously, personally, don't go asking other people, so what do you think? Because they'll tell you what they think, and that's not biblical. That's what they think. Seriously, personally, look into the Bible. Check things out. Read it yourself. Study it. Understand it. Know what it says. And I'm absolutely convinced if you do that, you will absolutely see the truth. Have you ever been in a situation where something has happened to you and lies are being spread about you and people are believing the lies about you and it's just devastating, but nobody comes to you and asks you the truth? And it's like, if you would ask me, I'd tell you the truth. No, I know. So-and-so said that so-and-so saw who knew so-and-so who said, and so yeah. And it's like, you're not even open to hearing the truth. And they believe these things about you because they've never inquired or asked. They've never come forward and said, so what really happened? And therefore, they're left with running with the deception and the opinions and the lies of others. They're left with accepting the hatred that somebody may have towards you and the lies that they spread about you. That's what people do with God. That's what people do with the Word of God. Oh no, I heard somebody who said that they knew this guy who was married to this woman who was a relative to this guy who really studied the Bible. And he said it's just not real. It's just a bunch of fake stuff. Oh, well, there you go. Something to stand on. If you want the truth, then be open to it. Personally, willingly consider, at least take the step of considering the Word of God personally. And I guarantee you, when you do that, the truth will be revealed to you. And as Jesus says, the truth will set you free. Let's pray. Father, we do thank you for your grace and your love and your mercy. Father, I really can't wrap my brain around the idea that you oversee and run this whole world and everyone and everything in it, but I know that you are a God and you are above, and therefore I trust you and I surrender to you. And I pray, Lord, I pray, Father, that people will at least take the step of considering, that they will at least take the personal step of reading about you. And as they do, the truth is so evident. The truth is so real. The truth absolutely sets us free from deception and lies and deceit. We're watching our world that is consumed in lies and deception, and you're the answer. And so I pray, Father, that people will open to the truth and take those steps of searching and asking and reading your word. And as you reveal your grace, and as you reveal your love, and as you reveal your salvation in Jesus, they will surrender all and accept and walk with Christ. And they will join us in heaven as this judgment in the future hits our world. So, Father, we thank you again for allowing us to have this opportunity of being together. Lord, I pray that you would just continue to keep us safe. Continue, Father, to keep us comforted in your presence and in your strength and in your mercy and in your grace. And we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching us today. We miss you guys prayerfully each Sunday. Prayerfully, this is the last Sunday. And I know there's going to be a day that we're going to be back together again and fellowshipping together and encouraging one another. I encourage you to call one another, email one another, text one another, FaceTime one another. Stay in touch. Encourage and love on one another. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.